Growing up, I was obsessed with curving the ball. I'd spend hours watching 𝗔𝗡𝗬𝗢𝗡𝗘 and even the F2 bend insane curlers, and then I'd spend hours in my backyard just trying to copy them. I skied lots of shots into the woods, but after years of perfecting finesse shots and Trivelas, I figured out how to teach them into simple steps so that way anyone can learn how to strike beauties like these. Welcome back to the channel, or just welcome if you're new. Let's get straight into it. When most people think of finesse shots, they think of curl, that side spin that whips the ball around defenders and sneaks it inside that far post. But here's the thing, there's actually two different ways to hit finesse shots. One will give you more curl and the other more power. And it all comes down to which part of your foot you're using to strike the ball and the angle of your foot when you do strike it. If you want maximum whip and shape on the ball, then strike the ball with your instep, just at the inside of your foot, right at the knuckle of your big toe. For this, your toes need to be angled slightly up and your ankle locked. That toe up position is what creates more side spin on the ball. The trade-off you get from this shot though is that it will have less power, but the whip it creates on the ball is deadly from the top of the box. Now, if you want a finesse shot with more power, then you need to strike the ball with your laces. For this, point your toes down, still with the ankle locked, and the shot will come off more powerful, but with less bend on the ball. This is a better option for long-range efforts that are like 25 yards out. And I'll make this quick, but YouTube recently came out with this thing where you can hype videos. So if you could please hype this video, it really helps out small creators and it helps their videos spread to more people. Thank you. So now that we know the two different types of curlers, let's break down the technique step by step. The first piece is your setup touch, and this is where most players mess it up. If you're going to curl the ball with your instep, then your first touch needs to be wider at about a 70 or 90 degree angle away from goal towards the sideline. But you also need a good touch out of your feet, about 2 or 3 yards away from your body, so that way you can generate power on your shot. And this big wide touch also gives you enough room so that way you can open up your hips and then wrap them around the ball, which is what gives that shot that whipped shape. If you're striking it with your laces for a powerful finesse shot, then your first touch doesn't need to be as wide. It can be more like 45 degrees out of your hit line. Now you still want it out of your feet a good 2 or 3 yards though, so that way you can generate the power you're looking for. It's still out of your feet and wide, but it's not as exaggerated because this technique relies less on the whip of the shot to beat the goalkeeper and more on your power. And now that you set yourself up, it's all about your plant foot. For curlers, plant your standing foot about 4 inches to the side of the ball and make sure it's pointing wide of the target. Why? Well, where your planted foot is pointing determines the direction of your shot. So if you're aiming right at the far post when you're shooting, the side spin and the shape on the ball is going to bring it back towards the middle of the goal. Instead, you actually want to aim wide of the goal, so that way the spin will bring it right back inside the post. Now you'll also notice that we want our standing foot closer to the ball on curlers than with lace shots, because we're not trying to hit right at the middle of the ball like you do with your laces. Instead, we want to hit the opposite side of the ball. So if you're right-footed, you want to hit the right side of the ball, and vice versa if you're left-footed, because that is what creates that side spin on the ball we need to get that shape on our curlers. And also, you want to hit just below the midline of the ball and with your ankle locked. And so you know, locking your ankle just means activating the muscles around it so that way it stays firm or locked. For example, when you're passing, you lock your ankle by pointing your toes up. If you do it right now, you'll notice how it makes your ankle firm. But when you're shooting or playing a long ball, you lock your ankle by pointing your toes down hard, and you need to keep it that way throughout the shot. Now for finesse shots in particular, if you're looking to get more whip and side spin on the ball, then you'll want to have that toe up similar to how when you're passing. If you need power though, then you need to keep those toes pointed down throughout the entire shot. Now when you're striking the ball with your instep, you want to lean hard to the opposite side with your arm up for balance. And this is another area where a lot of players screw it up. They're not leaning to the side hard enough, and because they're standing more upright over the ball, they can't get that insane curve on the ball they're looking for. But when you're striking the ball with your laces, you actually won't want to lean that hard to the side. Instead, you'll actually want to keep your chest over the ball, leaning over it, so that way your shot stays low and it doesn't just fly over the bar. And finally, you have your follow through. For curlers, think of wrapping your hips or your legs around the ball in like an arch shape. You almost want to think about it like you're swinging your leg around the ball. This motion is what maximizes that spin and shape on the ball. For laced curlers though, your follow through is straighter through the ball because you're prioritizing power and a clean strike. And real quick, I want to say thank you to all my channel members. Their support helps me create this content for everyone. And if you'd also like to get access to 2 full training sessions a month, then consider becoming a channel icon. Or not, it's up to you. Thank you. So now that I've broken down the technique, let me run through some critical errors that most players make and just quickly correct them for you. The first big mistake I'm seeing is that players don't record their technique. If you want to master curlers and trivelas fast, then you should record yourself like you're seeing me do for this video. Then you can put up your videos side by side and look at the technical differences so that way you can clean up your technique. Secondly, and more on a technical level, players strike too centrally on the ball. If you strike right at the middle of the ball, then it's impossible to get that side spin you're looking for to get that insane curve. If your shots keep sailing over the bar and they don't have much spin on it, then it's because you're leaning back too much and you're striking too low on the ball. Remember, we want to hit just below the midline of the ball. The fourth mistake a lot of players make is that they don't lock their ankle when they're shooting. And because of this, it's difficult for them to get power and consistency on their shots. Fifth, most players don't aim wide enough when they're hitting their curlers. And because of that, it keeps going down the middle of the goal. And lastly, don't lean back with your toes pointed down. If you are going to lean back when you're shooting, then you need to have those toes pointed up and swing your leg up through the ball because this helps create dip on it. And without that dip, that ball is flying to Mars. Now, let's talk about Trivelas, one of the most beautiful techniques in soccer. They look flashy, but they're really just a small twist on finesse shots. The setup is like a curler, but it's like you're setting it up on your weak foot. So if you're hitting a Trivela with your right foot, then you need to take your touch wide towards the left at about 70 degrees away from your body. Now for Trivelas, you don't want to be at a 90-degree angle because then it's going to be impossible to get that ball directed back towards goal. Now, just like with finesse shots, the wider you take your touch, the more curl you'll need to get on the ball. Now, if you take that touch at a more like a 45-degree angle, then it'll feel really natural for you to hit the Trivela in your stride. And this is good for throwing off the goalkeeper and having more power with it, but it will have less curl. As you approach the ball, you need to plant your standing foot 6 to 8 inches away from the ball. You need more space for Trivelas than curlers, so that way you can swing your leg and strike the outside of the ball without kicking yourself or the ground. So giving yourself that extra little bit of space will help it feel more natural when you're striking it. Speaking of, hit it with the outside of your laces, that bony part just below your ankle. Keep your ankle locked by pointing your toes down and then slightly inward. That inward angle is crucial. If you just point your toes straight down, then you risk smashing your foot on the ground and wrecking your ankle. Plus, it helps you get more side spin on the ball. One big difference between a Trivela and a curler, though, is your lean. For Trivelas, you don't want to lean to the side. Instead, you want to lean over the ball. But you do still want to have that opposite arm up for balance. And the last thing is your follow-through. If you want the maximum whip and side spin on the ball, then you actually want your leg to finish high, and you won't necessarily land on your kicking foot. And because your leg is going around the ball and finishing high, it's matching the trajectory on the shot. But if you want less spin on the ball and more power, then shorten your follow-through and punch straight through the ball, landing on your kicking foot. This will keep the shot lower and more like an arrow directed towards goal. As for mistakes I'm commonly seeing players make when they're trying to hit Trivelas, one thing that they're doing is they're standing too close to the ball, not allowing them to hit the outside of the ball. And that leads directly into the second thing, which is just that they're not hitting the correct part of the ball. Also, lots of players are not locking their ankles and they lean back when they're striking it, so they don't get enough power on their shots. Now, if you've learned something from this video, then give this one a watch. In it, I'll teach you how to play the perfect ping every single time.